Today, we are going to be going over a Warhammer 40k team tournament summary hosted by Straight Silver Gaming this past weekend. And safe to say, we had an amazing time. My first ever team tournament. So, very excited to go over the games today. Each one of the 4 games I played this past weekend. What worked, what didn't work, what lessons, all that good stuff. So, if that's something that interests you, please stick around. And without further ado, let's get into it. So this was our team's first crack at the team tournament setting, and safe to say it was a blast. Very well organized by Johnny, local here in the Portland area. It's a great venue, great space, as you can see, plenty of room. I know Lucas with Team USA also laid a helping hand in terms of organizing this event and helping out with the missions and layouts and all of that. So kudos to him as well. It was just a great time for everybody. So I'm excited to talk about it today. So we had 3 teams of 5 that went from our team, which was pretty cool. And it was a mixture of GW layouts and WTC layouts, which was also really fun because we've been playing on GW layouts a lot. And so just being able to change that up and get a taste of just like a thicker board and more dense terrain and how to deal with it was something that was felt very fresh as well. And, there was just a lot of lessons and good stuff from this tournament. So, pretty funny. So if you guys watch my previous tournament summary a couple weeks ago, I played Ryan's Death Guard in the last round with my Awaken list. And we were joking around because coincidentally, we both got paired up our teams in round 1. And we were joking around because we were looking at our matrix and we were like, yeah, we're probably going to get paired up against each other. And sure enough, it happened. So we went up against Ryan's Death Guard in round 1. And I'm going to flip it over here to the pictures here. And God, what a fantastic game. Always love playing Ryan. It was just a great time. And I'm not going to talk about like each one of these games like super in depth. I just want to more or less kind of go over the highlights and kind of some big plays that I think maybe swung it one way or another. But we were playing on Lichpin, Hammer, and Anvil, and we got selected for layout 8 in this pairing. And I was really the only person on my team outside of like the mirror match. My buddy Bryce was playing Death Guard, and Ryan obviously didn't really want the mirror match, so I knew he was gonna pick me. And because our other teammates, there was just no way in heck they were going to be able to probably deal with this list. So I was like, all right, well, this is what we built this Necron list for, is just kind of more or less the blunter to kind of take our bad matchups and just kind of score some points and keep it draw-ish. And that's what I expected for this. I mean, more or less, it's a close matchup. And I think the biggest lessons, just overall, talking out loud before we really get into it, is this unit right here, this Emitic unit, was just a paperweight the entire weekend, which I kind of knew going into it. I know I talked about on like recent previous videos, like having the king in there. It just felt so much better. It just solved a lot of problems in terms of, one, just not having enough damage, preventing like opponents rushing you, all of that good stuff. So, yeah, definitely a unit that was not going to be sticking around after this team tournament. But let's get into the game here. So Lichpin, Hammer, and Anvil, layout 8, going against Ryan, the rematch. And you can see here he's got Cultist stage up, more or less the same list. He's got a unit of 6 Nurglings here. He's got a couple War Dog Brigands. He has a unit of 6 Death Shroud Terminators and Deep Strike up in the air. And he's got a couple Predators for screening backfield, and then potentially, have some anti-tank downfield. Just a good overall solid list. He's got a little of everything in the toolbox to do what he needs to. So he is going to get first turn, which didn't mind that at all. And you're going to see here pretty standard stuff. We're just going, I didn't take a ton of pictures, but more or less staged up. First battle round, flayed ones just moved up. Our classic warrior example. So we put like 10 OC up on this objective, 8 OC on this objective, and we're just kind of like, all right, like, what do you want to do about it? And so knowing he's going to want to shift these resources forward, you're going to see that here. And this was kind of like more or less what you saw the theme of the game. All right. So a lot of it was my opponent, all right, well, you don't really have a lot of anti-tank. I'm just going to push all this stuff in your face. And, what do you want to do about it? And, granted, the Scorpex and some of this stuff, can do a decent clapback. But the problem is that with Death Guard, they have a decent Overwatch threat. And so, you kind of almost either have to bait an Overwatch, or you really have to position correctly to avoid getting Overwatched by the Death Shroud because they have a ton of flamers, or the Plague Marines are just a nightmare, especially with their fight first as well. It is just not a good unit for Scorpex, to say the least, to deal with. So, so fast forwarding here, you can kind of see how this plays out here. And essentially the clapback, we did a decent job of removing some assets. We got most of the Plague Marines down. We did some decent damage to the Death Shroud Terminators, and we killed one of the Predators, and one Predator was still left alive. And fast forwarding here, you're going to see here that he pushed these assets up from the previous turn, going here. And he did a really good job of tying up the Locust Destroyers so they couldn't Veil of Darkness up and down. He's really worried about, me veiling them, getting an angle on something like these cultists, even though the objective is sticky, but potentially even giving me some super easy secondary, like at the end of the game, which you just don't want to teams. Because at the end of the day, it's all about points. You just got to think about the points. So this was a really good play on his part. And then I basically fell back with them towards the end, and I used the Ghost Arc to essentially tie up the Terminator, so it prevented him from tagging this unit, so I could bring them up in turn 5 to try to score some points, because that was really the only thing that could stop these guys from harassing me, because I just didn't have the damage to deal with them. And you can see he still has a lot left as far as armor. I mean, he still has all the War Dogs left. He still has the Predator left. We killed most of the Terminators and the Plague Marines, but, he's still scoring a decent amount of points. And then this was basically the last picture I took at the end of the game. And it finished off a 9-11 loss to the Death Guard, or 82-91. So, I mean, still a very close game. But I think the biggest thing, going back to, I think it was just a list. I mean, Ryan played this very well, and he knew, as far as looking at this list, like, hey, you don't have enough potentially anti-tank to deal with all of this durability. I'm going to threat overload you early, which I think was the right call. And it really pressed me on primary in the first 3 rounds, where I just didn't really have an opportunity to score big. And he capitalized on that. And so, kudos to him. It was a great freaking game. And that was the end of round 1. So going into round 2, I remember to do the get a picture of the pairings this time. So I won't go super in depth of how like the pairings work or all that sort of stuff. But I will say the team format, it totally makes sense why it's picking up so much traction here in the US and just like around the world, because it's 2 games a day is life-changing. You just 4-hour rounds, you don't feel rushed. Having like an hour and a half lunch or 2-hour lunch almost, to hang out with your friends and the team and other teams and go over your matrix for the next round. That format, it was just so much fun. You didn't feel just like completely cooked mentally after the game. So this is kind of a taste of what teams looks like. You have your cards and your matchups and, your maps that you're picking and all that sort of stuff. So this was our matchups going into round 2. And I was paired into the man himself, Justin. And this, I think, was my favorite game of the weekend. Mainly because this was a freaking masterclass by this mate, man. There were just a lot of things that he executed like freaking perfectly. That was just really cool to see. So, The Crons fell on this one 7-13, or 80-96, and we're doing Scorched Earth, quarter deployment, and this is WTC heavy, so you can see it is just a giant kill box in the center here, and then we have some really dense staging points with the blanked out walls on the sides here, these staging points here, okay? So going into this game, again, I'm kind of dealing with the same problem. I haven't fought against this meta Gladius Guilliman Calgar build with 2 Vindicators, so this was kind of like my first crack at it. I kind of had a general idea of what it did. You know, obviously it's super durable, it shoots freaking hard, and they have a lot of react moves, and they're just super mobile. I mean, it's like they're not playing an uppy downy army, but for the amount of react moves that they have, fall back and shoot and charge, advance and charge, I mean, it almost feels like it because they can really just get anywhere if they need to. And with Guilliman, just, you know, the CP farm and the CP reduction, I mean, it's like they have like 20 CP to deal with through like a whole game. I mean, it's just insane. So, I mean, they could just kind of do whatever they want when they want, which is not a bad thing in Warhammer. So, you're going to see here, we pretty much stage everything out of line of sight. So we have all this staged back here. And we are going to get first turn. So we get engage on all fronts and establish locus. I luck out with the Scorpek Lord, and he ends up rolling a 6 on his advance. So we actually ended up getting engage on all fronts on turn 1. And we also got established locus for 2. With the warriors in the center, because this was the mission where we could advance in action for battle line, which was super nice. And that's another nice thing, having the warriors in there, because they count as battle line. So a lot of the secondary missions, if you're in a tournament, you know, you kind of get that added benefit for them to either shoot in action or advance in action or raise banners, which is super cool. So again, kind of same type of thing where we're creating that V, and we are stacking OC on this objective, and getting locus on this objective, and being within at least 6 to make sure that if he does draw area denial, you know, he has to figure out some way to get rid of these guys to deal with it. So going into the turn here, this was one of the highlights of the game. There's a couple things. So he moved up this unit right here, which I thought was a good play. And he has Guilliman right here. Now, what I'm thinking is he has this guy right here that's off the point. So mentally, when I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, this is like the perfect opportunity where Guilliman is outside heroic intervene range. I can base the Scorpek Lord here, and he's going to be able to move far enough where he doesn't want to really react, move away. And if he does, I can move 8 here to either threaten this unit or threaten this unit behind the wall. Okay. And the biggest thing is that this guy is off the point, so I can clean up this unit for one of his resources, and I don't actually have to get on the point. So if he does draw Storm Hostile or Overwhelming Force going in the next turn, it's not going to be like a free, 3 points just because he's going to kill that Scorpek Lord. So that was like, it was initially set up pretty nice for him, but he does make a very, very good play. So going into the turn, I made sure to take a picture of this because it was so good. Scorpek Lord is on 4 wounds left, and he drops in these Inceptors, a unit of 6. He had a unit of 6 and a unit of 3 in reserve. And if there is one unit that I feel like needs to go as quickly as possible, it is this unit, because this unit was just cleaning up the entire game and just could not get an angle on these dudes. So Inceptors drop in. He's going to do an Overwatch off of these guys at the Scorpek Lord and cleans him up on the charge. So what happens is I try to charge. It obviously triggers the Overwatch, and then he's going to res at the end of the phase. And so it ends up just him being stuck there, unfortunately. So he kills the Scorpek Lord on the nose, which was huge. And this is the one that has the 4 up Feel No Pain. So just really good way to just like neutralize that. I think on an average roll that probably should happen. I don't feel like I rolled bad or he rolled well. But yeah, he ended up killing him, had to spend the CP to bring him back, and he avoided the Scorpec Lord just charging in and cleaning up that resource. So that was like super clutch. And then the next biggest thing that wanted to highlight here is, so you're going to see on these next turns, is that he's going to push these Inceptors up here. And this is what good players do, okay? So I'm needing to make sure that I screen out these 6s, because these Inceptors can cause me crazy problems for the ones that he still has in reserve back here. And so I left this Scorpec like a little bit farther back to screen out that 6, when in reality, I think I could have shifted these flayed ones over just a little bit farther over this way to complete that screen, where I didn't need to essentially expose him on this line going down here. So that was like a slight error on my part. I didn't expect him potentially to get that aggressive with that unit, but I think it's worth it because, you know, essentially what he's looking at, he's like, yo, I'm not going to fire at these warriors. I'm going to try to essentially precision scalpel out these Scorpecs. And it was a masterclass of freaking doing it. So he finds a line here to get this Scorpec. And what's crazy is what you can't see over here is there's a Vindicator that's going to drop in right here. Let me see if this comes off on the next picture. Yeah, so you see it right here. Okay, so I also didn't shift these warriors up a little bit more. I thought this was screened out, or at least it looked like 9. I screened out all these corners. I was so focused on that, but I forgot to look at this pocket right here. I thought with this hex mark there and this here, there was like no way something could fit there, and that was like my bad. And it was like literally just by like, I mean, it might not have been a half an inch. It was like totally legit. And that's what good players are going to do. They're going to find like those just like slightest mistakes and try to capitalize on them. So he drops in the Vindicator here. And I think Justin also, he went like 5th overall in this tournament this weekend. So if you're watching, man, like kudos to that. Like very well done. Had a blast playing you. Love to play again. And okay, so Vindicator here fires first. It also worked out perfect where I thought the Hunter Killer and the Vindy was going to be able to kill freaking 3 Scorpecs, and he left 1 on 1 wound. So I was like, oh my gosh, man. Because then basically what opened up is I was hoping this would pull it out of line of sight, but it left it on 1 wound. And it was enough for these guys to have line of sight to pick up the rest of this unit, which was like freaking huge. So he picked up that, and you can see here that he's more or less just trying to pressure in. Okay. And again, I'm just trying to speak like out loud here. So, you know, this isn't like an hour-long video, but same type of theme in this game with both of my losses. He understands like the damage in this list is the Scorpecs. If I can get rid of the Scorpecs and ignore the warriors, I can push late game and neutralize the rest of the assets. And that's exactly what he did. He found a line here. He put Goleman right here at I think it was a 9-inch charge, and he just banged an 11. And so charge into the Scorpecs, and yeah, he got that, which was good. It was one of those turns like we both were kind of laughing about it. We were like, either this is going to be a turn that is like really, really good for you, or it's going to be really, really bad if you didn't make the charges. Because everything would have just been sitting out in the open. So, but yeah, he got the charges, cleaned up this unit. We didn't heroic intervene with the Scorpecs. It didn't make sense to. He cleans up the destroyer here, and fast forwarding here, you're just gonna see that theme where he's pressing over. He does do. It was funny, we're talking about this. You're wondering how these heavy destroyers are here. So there's a slight abate move here. I was like, dude, this guy's too good to be doing something like this. But at the same time, I'm like, you know, man, with the reses, you know, I mean, it was probably a long shot, but it was just like on Scorched Earth, I didn't need to shoot anything. I'm like, you know, maybe just try to drop in. Maybe I can burn it. The game's already not going too well right now. Maybe I can get some points, but it did not work out. It did not work out. So, they dropped there. We attempted to try to burn it, but yeah, he was able to shift this back over and take those out. But at that point, again, like this unit, I didn't mind doing it because it's just like they are a paperweight against 2-up armor save, armor contempt. And the first 2 matches I'm going against those type of lists. And so it's just like you have 275 points is literally doing nothing in your list, which it's a feels bad. It's a feels bad. But let's go into, and that was pretty much the game. So he pressed in, really couldn't get anything back. And as you can see here, that's pretty much the game. So well done to Justin. 7-13 loss for the Crons. But hey, we're going to rebound and we're going to turn things around, folks. All right. We're going to turn things around. All right. So round 3. I had to take a picture of this. This was our matrix, which was hilarious. I won't go like too in depth on this, but anyways, you guys take a look at that. We had like 1 green, or at least what we thought. So anyways, let's get into the game here. So going against Grey Knights. All right. So if you guys remember from the previous tournament, played Grey Knights, went first on Purge the Foe. Okay. He's playing the new detachment. And I'm like, okay, this is, I know not probably going to be good, but let's see if we learn some lessons here and figure out if we can pull this out. Now, one thing that's really helping me is that this is on WTC terrain. So as you can see, it is very dense. I think this was also the heavy layout. And more or less going into this game, the biggest thing that the Warrior Brick can solve for me is, 1, I can hold more objectives very easily. Warpbane really struggle with, they don't have a lot of OC, as one weakness that you can expose. And if you can hold 2 objectives in the center reliably, it really messes up their damage output as well, because they don't get the rerolls, because they have to control half to get that bonus. And so before the game started, that's essentially what I was going to try to do, where especially on Purge the Foe, I am wanting just to expose the Warriors, and then if he gets really close, then I'll bring out the Scorpex. But the problem in this matchup is a lot of times I have to commit 2 resources to kill one of his. So if I do bring something out, it's basically I am going to get a kill, but he's always going to get kill and kill more. So if I can neutralize that until the late game, I think I'm going to be in a good spot to pull away this win. And good news, that is exactly what happened. So we won 90-73. I will say it was like, and that was with him scoring. You can see here he scored like 25 points going into the final turn. Otherwise, it was like an 18-2 going into the final turn. But there's just like, I mean, with Purge, bottom of turn scoring on Purge, especially if you're an up-down army, it's just like, it's pretty hard to prevent them from scoring like 16 points. And then he got some great secondaries on the last turn, and that was it. So, but very happy with this win. And just fast forwarding here, that was pretty much the highlight. I mean, I just put up the Warriors here first turn and said, what do you want to do about it? And I think the biggest thing that we talked about is this opponent did not press. I didn't get pictures of it, but he brought out the Crow unit and tried to just shoot everything into this without the Dread Knights, and it just bounced. And that was the theme of the game. He more or less just kind of trickled out resources and underestimated, I think, just like the durability of the brick. And then it allowed me to come in and clean up these resources here. And the reason why I brought the Scorpex out is because he had a unit of 10 with a character, so it counted as 2 units. So if I brought out the Scorpex and the character as well, I knew I was going to get a kill, but we weren't going to get kill more because he wasn't going to be able to kill the Warriors. So we were consistently scoring 8s and 12s, and then we were keeping him at either a 4 or an 8 because he would usually just get a hold 1 and then a kill. And then we prevented getting any sort of kill on the first round by playing the flayed ones conservatively. And you can see here, I even apologize to him because I'm just like, it was a very kind of boring game, just because of what I had to do to score points for my team, because I couldn't really expose my damage pieces. So, I mean, this is literally like, I mean, I think he only lost like 500 points of his army going into turn 5. I mean, I think that was like genuinely, he had all of his Dread Knights. I think I maybe killed 1 Dread Knight. And yeah, I mean, that was it. So, but great playing, Zach, great opponent. And yeah, overall it was just a great game. And it was cool just to see that, like, you know, I learned my lessons from that previous one and what to do in this matchup. So it felt good. And then rounding it out, round 4, we went against the Votan and got a W as well. You can see the first 2 rounds on secondary, like what in the actual heck? Like, I was like, oh my gosh, Colin, what is even happening right now? So, yeah, more or less same thing here. We are bringing up the warrior brick. I really underestimated what ended up happening. So I drew Bring It Down Assassination, cycled Assassination from behind enemy lines. So I got 3 cards that I just could not score at all turn 1. And then turn 2, I drew Storm Hostile, which I couldn't do because the only one I could storm was this one. And then I cycled that for no prisoners. So I'm like, oh, okay, like that's going to be pretty straightforward. And I just completely misread the damage, like horrendously. Where I left literally this on 1 wound, I left like berserkers on like 2 wounds, and then like it was so bad. And then I didn't do enough damage here, so like area denial ended up being a 0. Again, it was just like there was just not enough punch in this list where like the king solves so many of those problems. Not one, because he's a huge damage piece, and then giving the rerolls to Xeris and the Scorpex, like it just makes everything and the warrior is just so much more reliable. So, but you're going to see here, this was turn 3 where he essentially is like, hey, this is my go turn. And you're going to see he's going to press everything in. And I ended up a little trick for newer players. If you didn't score no prisoners and you have things that are wounded, a good idea is to hold onto it into your opponent's turn, because what ended up happening is I was able to pop this vehicle on his turn and kill the berserkers on an overwatch. So I ended up getting no prisoners for 4 points. So you weren't fully stuck with the card. So it's a good rule of thumb. You can still score the card on your turn because it scores at the end of each turn. Now, so this was his go turn. More or less, he pressed everything in and could not kill the warriors. And this is what is painful about this list, is then you counterpunch with all the Scorpex, and then you just clean everything up. So you end up, I held this one now. He lost pretty much everything here. And then at that point, it's just like the point of no return, because you've lost everything that can really kill the warriors. And at that point, just the Scorpex and everything else are just pushing upfield and just scoring points. So you can see, you know, how much stronger going into the scoreboard as far as like round 4 and 5, we're capitalizing on 15s and we're handing him 5s because he only has this objective stickied in the back. And then we're scoring really strong at that point and pulling away. So overall, I mean, great freaking game here. And great game against Jason. Super nice guy. I mean, all my opponents this weekend, I lucked out again. I mean, it's just it was a great time. And yeah, I think overall, I mean, the list felt great. Still working on perfecting it and figuring things out. I probably have a GT next month, and then going to a golden ticket event in April. I'm super excited about Squeak City out in Pendleton. It's at like a casino, which will be pretty cool. And but yeah, I think overall was really missing the king. Was really missing the king this weekend, to say the least. I think the Amitics, they have their place in Star Shatter, but man, I just that was not the right decision as far as bringing them. And you know, the Catacomb Command Barge is nice, but that is one thing I'm thinking about dropping to switch out for the king. But overall, fantastic tournament. Learned a lot, and yeah, can't wait for the next one. So, anyways, peace.